If you're clicking on this video, I'm sure that you might have been going to the gym for a while and maybe you're not seeing the results that you want. And so today I thought I'd tell you about some research that might explain one possible reason as to why this might be happening. If you're new here, my name is Tilly and I am a master of exercise science. Woo! Let's get into it. Also, if any of you plant people want to tell me why these beautiful things are dying behind me, yep, I have no idea. I don't think it'll be news to you that everyone has really individual responses to exercise. Like, we all build muscle and we build strength at different rates. And this can depend on things like our age, our training history, genetic factors, etc. But what you might not know is that this individual variation in our responsiveness can be huge. So we have people who respond really well to exercise or really quickly, and we call them high responders. On the other side of things, we have low responders. For example, this study showed that some participants had over 40% increase or improvement in their muscle cross-sectional area or their muscle size. Whereas the lower end of that, or the low responders, some people had less than 5% improvement. That's a huge difference. And what's interesting is that if you find yourself being a high responder for one aspect of fitness, so say strength, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be a high responder for other characteristics of fitness, like hypertrophy or building muscle size. So like the study's shown you, and like I've just said, some people respond positively to exercise by gaining size, but not strength, or strength, but not size. And when we're talking about low responders, so people who are not getting the results that they want, well, it appears to generally be more common to be a low responder with respect to muscle size rather than strength. Another example from this same study that I've been quoting is 30% of people are low responders to lower body hypertrophy. Now that's a lot of information right off the cuff, right off the bat. So am I telling you that to give you a reason as to why my legs are so small? Like maybe it's out of my control? No, I'm not trying to do that. But it is interesting, right? We can already start to see the differences in how people respond or how people's bodies adapt to exercise. And when you're hearing all of this, it can be quite easy to feel jealous. You're like, what? Some people work just as hard as me and then they get 35% extra better results, better improvements? How is that fair? And well, I've got to tell you that being a high responder isn't always positive. While it means that you can gain muscle or strength quite quickly, it might also mean that you lose it quite quickly too. It works both ways. The superpower goes in both directions. Have a look here to see exactly what I'm talking about. Although the high responders increase the cross-sectional area of their quads by 23%, which was the most in the whole study, they also had a decrease. They lost 10.5% in comparison to just losing 0.7 or 0.6%, which were the decreases that the moderate and the low responders had. So even though people can gain things really quickly, if they don't maintain it and they go through that period of detraining, high responders can lose it really quickly too. Now at this point you might be wondering, well, if I'm not a high responder, is there any point to all of this? Am I ever going to get results? And yes, you anxious thinker, you will. Like I said, the high responders lose their gains really quickly, but the low responders, as we saw, did not. They had a 0.6% decrease in their improvement. So essentially what the researchers came together and they hypothesized, they used their brains to create. They hypothesized that this simply meant that the time course for adaptation for low responders was slower. So instead of coming up with ideas and stories and saying, well, we're never gonna get there because it takes us so much longer, this is an indicator that perhaps you're not getting the results you want because you just need more time. So potentially it might be a good idea to sprinkle a little bit of patience, a little bit of extra kindness towards yourself. And what might that look like? Well, I don't know. Maybe if someone that you know gets a certain set of results in 2 months, then that might look like giving yourself 4 months to do the same thing. It also might look like avoiding coaches and trainers who promise such amazing results in such a short amount of time. Maybe being kind to yourself is meaning ditching the deadlines anyways. Why do we need 4 months to get in shape? Being kind to yourself might look like avoiding those bikini body or beach body challenges just completely. Because I mean, they're not great for anyone in the best of circumstances, right? But particularly if you're thinking that you're a low responder and it's going to take you a little bit longer to achieve results in the same amount of time. I'm also going to assume that you've clicked on this video because you're playing a little bit of that comparison game. You've probably seen someone online or maybe one of your friends who has had such incredible results in such a short amount of time. And in your gut, you're probably thinking, it's too good to be true. And it might be. I'd like to take this moment to be a little bit cynical. Performance enhancing drugs are so common in the fitness space. They are everywhere. And so if people pack on a mad amount of size in a short amount of time, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's anything wrong with your body if you're not able to achieve that same thing in the same amount of time. They might be getting extra help, is what I'm trying to say. And on a less cynical note, it's really important to remember that we all have different bodies, and that's okay. Your body might respond more quickly to strength training, and I might respond more slowly. That doesn't mean that it'll never, ever, ever get there ever in a million years ever. It just means if you're not seeing the results that you want, this might be a good time to remember that you're on your own journey. And as much as it's fun, so fun, the most fun, comparing other people to ourselves, it's just not in the best interest of our emotional health, is it? And like I've just shown you, because of that huge difference or the huge variations that we can see in strength training, it's not really scientific to compare yourself to other people, is it? And it's actually so cool that our bodies are so different. Like, as a coach, I kind of love that. It gives me an opportunity to put my thinking hat on and to try and think of a different way of helping somebody. Individualizing training and the training experience is one of the best parts about it. And from a coach's perspective, I don't know if this will be helpful to you guys, but if a client or an athlete doesn't respond in a way that I want them to, my brain doesn't immediately go to, oh, well, this means that they're never ever going to get results, so we might as well stop trying. Like, that's quite a fixed mindset. If people aren't getting the results that we want them to, then what it does indicate is that a conversation needs to be had. We need to collaborate and find a solution, or to find a different approach to training. So it's kind of about reframing your mindset. It's not about, why didn't my body get those results in 2 months, and does that mean that I'm not an athlete and that I'll never be fit in my life? No. It's just about putting together all the different pieces of a puzzle, and that might take ages, but it's about being gentle to ourselves in the process, no matter how long that process is. And this is kind of a good segue into my next point. It would be remiss of me not to point out that there are other factors that can contribute to how much muscle we put on or how long it takes us to develop our strength. These factors can include things like your nutritional intake, daily rhythms, your sleep habits, your genetic predisposition, your stress levels, your work environment, and more. And all of those things come into play before I mention the training variables like training duration, frequency, volume, training age, your access to quality coaches and quality facilities, the time available that you have to train. And because of all of these millions upon millions of variables, if you feel like you're not making progress, it's not necessarily because of a fated, predetermined categorization of being a high or a low responder. And just because you're not making a super amount of progress at one point in your life, or just because you're a slow responder on one fitness characteristic, it doesn't mean that you're going to respond that way forever. Maybe, for example, maybe one day when you're not stressed and you're going to the gym because you actually like it and not because you're trying to get your body to look like somebody else's or trying to mimic their progress. And maybe in a different time of your life where you're privileged enough to have the spare time to be able to get to the gym in the first place, maybe then your body and your mind might respond more significantly to your exercise regime. You gotta be kind to yourself. There's so much happening. But to finish off, I wanted to give you the best practical advice I have for getting results in the gym, and that is to monitor yourself. And what I mean by this is to start by collecting some data on yourself. Write down the weights you use, write down how long you train for, or maybe how you feel about how your session went. This information is so important, and it's really helpful to be aware of because it can help us reframe our mindset, and it can help us stay focused on the bigger picture. Let me give you an analogy as to why this works. When you see somebody every day, you don't necessarily notice the small changes about them, because all of those small changes kind of blur into one. But when you're away from somebody for a period of time, the changes suddenly hit you in the face and you're like, whoa, something is different. And that's the same for yourself in the gym. You might be going to the gym 3, 4, 5 times per week, and you might be looking at yourself in the mirror every single day. How are you going to notice the changes? You might, but it can be really difficult to separate yourself and your body from the moment that you're in. So when you write things down, when you monitor yourself, and when you actively keep a track of the thoughts that you had, the weights that you used, how it felt, etc., then you can go back and look at it, and you have information, you have a direct comparison point to what you used to be. You can see the progress. If I give you another example of this, I write down notes for every exercise I do in the gym. I write down everything, potentially too much, but I think it works for me. On this day, you can see that I wrote down, that session killed me and I felt sick. 3 weeks later, even though my weights hadn't increased significantly, I did not leave that same comment on my program, which indicated to me that I wasn't finding it as hard. And so through writing this down, I was able to see a tangible change in my performance. It's something that I otherwise would have forgotten about, something that would have remained intangible. It would have remained a thought and something not really accounted for. So by becoming aware of yourself and taking the time to write things down, that is honestly one of the greatest gifts or the greatest bits of advice that I could give you in terms of how to see results in the gym. Because as nice as looking muscly and hench is, it's not the only marker for success in the gym. It's not even the most important one necessarily. An example for me as a more important marker of success is a lack of pain. In this session, I wrote down hip really sore and I wasn't able to complete the session. 3 weeks later, I wrote down completed and smashed it. That is incredible, and that is worth celebrating. And that is a result that I've seen in the gym. So even though it might take longer for you to see physical results, or it might take longer for you to hit those strength goals that you want, that doesn't mean that you're not changing. And that doesn't mean that you should stop moving your body in a way that feels positive for you. If you start writing down your thoughts and becoming aware of your training process, I can almost guarantee you that you will see more progress than you think. So maybe it's worth a try. And maybe it's worth reframing what success looks like to you. Because much like how our bodies respond to exercise, success looks different for everybody. It can even look different for one person under different circumstances. For me as a coach with my general population clients, my main goal is getting them to love exercise and to feel empowered and engaged with the training process. And if I can do that, then that's a win. Whereas when I'm working with athletes in a performance environment, I need them to perform well. And if I can get them to do that, then that's a win. For myself in my own training, consistency and not pushing into a place of pain, that is my definition of success. So what does it mean to you? What results are you actually looking for? And what is most important for you? I think this is worth having a think about, and I'd love to know your thoughts down below. As always, have an amazing week ahead, everyone. I'll catch you later, skaters. God. Bye, guys. Hey, you see that subscribe button? Go ahead and click it. Come on, you know you want to.